What's up, everybody? It's Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to the Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow @Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers, coming off a huge win in Denver, the Mile High City. And Justin, it was a really ugly game, but we got it done in the end. Pacers came away with the win.
Yeah, it was a very, very poor first half, even first three quarters. Very reminiscent to the Philadelphia game last week, I think. And I'll admit, I didn't think the Pacers would win. I sent a message to you guys during the game saying there's no chance we win this. They look sluggish. And something from the tip-off I even saw as well, Malcolm Brogdon yawning 3 or 4 times before the jump
he does
ball.
that every game. He does that every game.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. But they just weren't into it. They looked tired. Doug McDermott also said post-game they were very tired before the game for some reason. But, yeah, what a fantastic win. Who would have thought fourth quarter Dougie McDermott pulled in a Reggie Miller-type performance?
He was unbelievable. Alex, you ever been in altitude at all?
That is a negative. No, I haven't been to the Mile High City, actually. What about you?
No, I've never been in high altitude. I try to avoid that sort of thing. But I know that it's definitely helped the Denver Nuggets across the journey. They always have a really strong home record, and a lot of teams say that they come out pretty lethargic and they get tired pretty quickly. But it actually ended up being that the Pacers just got better as the game went along rather than running out of steam by the end of it. It was a really strong fourth quarter performance. And once again, it was Domas Sabonis and Malcolm Brogdon that sealed the win, wasn't it?
Yeah, Domas, I think he is a lock for the All-Star game. I just saw a post from Basketball Forever, actually, that didn't have him in the All-Star team, which is a shock to me. I think he's one of the only people that doesn't put him in the All-Star game. But what did he do today? 22 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. I need a screen assist check from one of you two boys to see if he got that good triple-double. But I think, he had 8 offensive rebounds, 7 defensive. He was just an absolute animal. And then the president... It doesn't matter how much he's struggling, how much of a bad game he's having offensively. When it becomes that last 2 or 3 minutes, he just turns it up every single game. 22 points again today, and he had that absolutely monster jam, that left-handed one on Jeremy Grant, which made me absolutely jump out of my seat. But that fourth quarter, 41-26 in Pacers' favor. It was just from start to finish, it was an absolute clinic. Dougie McBuckets, 90% from the field. We need to get him in the three-point contest. I don't know if you guys saw the post-game interview, but he said that he would definitely do it if the NBA invited him. NBA, I don't know what you're doing, but get our boy Mick Buckets in the three-point contest.
Yeah, he definitely deserves to be there. It's, we've talked about it all season. It's a bit of a slight on Indiana. Everyone's sleeping on us all season long because we're a smaller team. Not as many, huge star players playing for Indiana, but Doug McBuckets does deserve to be in the three-point contest. He's had... I would argue a career year this year. He's been incredibly reliable, 6 for 7 from 3 for this game, and he really saved the game for us across the third and fourth quarters, Justin.
Yeah, it was fantastic to see, and I was speaking to Alex before the show, and it was just every shot he took in the fourth quarter, I just had supreme confidence it was going in. He just made every look he took 9 or 10 from the field, 6 or 7 from deep. And what I think changed the game, which not much people would have maybe taken notice, is Nate McMillan leaving TJ McConnell in, actually running the point in the fourth and actually sliding Brogdon over to the 2. He creates so much space and, just kind of randomness on the offense. It must be really hard to defend. TJ McConnell, I'm not saying he is Steve Nash. He's not even close to him. But McConnell will run in the paint, duck below the hoop and then do a little pass to someone. And, it was great offense, 41 points in Denver in the fourth quarter. I probably don't think the Pacers have ever put up that much in the fourth quarter against Denver.
No, especially not in Denver. I mean, as I said, it's a team that really takes advantage of their home ground or home stadium advantage, especially with the conditions in Denver. When you're used to those conditions, you obviously find it easier to play in them. And it was clear that some Pacers struggled with that. I mean, Jeremy Lamb was 0 for 7 for the game. Aaron Holiday 0 for 3 for the game. Miles Turner was 1 for 5 and fouled out. So, those 3 guys really struggled. They all got decent minutes, all above 20 minutes, but they really all struggled from the field. But it was good that we had a guy like TJ Warren early on to kind of carry the scoring load in that first quarter, because both teams got off to a poor start. The Pacers in particular, I think they hit 2 of their first 12 field goal attempts, and it was really a sluggish start, as you said. Guys, and ultimately it was able to be picked up by Doug McDermott, Malcolm Brogdon, and Domas Sabonis in the second half. But you have to talk about Domas's passing ability. He gave Nikola Jokic all he could handle. We spoke about, obviously, Jokic being such a good center and such a good passer, but Domas won that battle tonight pretty comprehensively. And Alex, that's got to make him a lock for the All-Star game, as you said. And if Malcolm Brogdon hadn't have been injured, I would argue that he would be right up there. Yeah. But at this point, it's probably not going to happen. We'll be lucky to get the one entry from Indy in the All-Star game, which we'll be pretty happy with, I'd say. But overall, a really professional way to finish the game, and we look forward to 4 more games on this Western Conference road trip. Now, before we talk about that, Alex, there was one game played at home against the T-Wolves. We were able to come away with a victory there. Do you want to talk us through what you liked in that game?
It was almost similar to the Nuggets game in the sense the Pacers were playing slow early. It's been a little bit of a trend the last couple of weeks. Maybe they're just getting tired. A lot of guys have had to play big minutes with these injuries. Karl Anthony Towns was doing what Cat does, but I think Turner, he only had the 8 points, 1 from 3 from the field, but I thought he did an amazing job on Towns. I know it was his first game back. You could tell he was a little bit rusty, especially early on, but I think Miles did a great job shutting him down. And yeah, TJ buckets, 11 from 18 for the field, 28 points, and he just does it in such a nonchalant way. He's not flashy, isn't doing Ja Morant behind the back, bloody alley-oops to our centers, but he's just going to get a bucket. He knows, I think Quinn said it today, he smells buckets. He knows where they're coming from. He's such a good cutter without the ball, and yeah, I think he's improved on defense like we've talked about a lot throughout the year, and he was the key to that win, and it was a pretty comprehensive one at the end of the day, coming out with Justin Holiday made that play at the end, I should say. It was close. Justin Holiday made that behind, what did he pass it off, like Robert Covington's back or something? Yeah. Made a heads-up play at the end. That was pretty smart there from the savvy vet, so good win all in all.
Yeah, down the stretch, it was Malcolm Brogdon who hit a big shot against the T-Wolves and also a big shot against Denver. I was going to say, we thought that we'd lose a lot of that clutch production when Victor Oladipo went out injured, and Malcolm Brogdon's done a really good job of replacing some of those clutch minutes that Victor would provide us. So, Justin, has it surprised you that Malcolm Brogdon's so reliable with the ball in his hands in a close game?
Yeah, it has. And, we all knew it was a big free agent signing. We mentioned this is probably going to be the best point guard the Pacers have had in quite some time. But I didn't know he was this good of a clutch player. I've seen little highlights of him hitting big shots for the Bucks, but obviously their go-to guy was the MVP. So it's a bit different for the Milwaukee team. But, he's, like Alex mentioned before, he can be 0 for 7. And I still have confidence he's going to hit the big shot in the fourth. I'm never like, oh no, don't shoot it. He's had a bad night. He's always going to make the right read, the right play. And there's 2 games in a row he's essentially made the dagger. So I couldn't be more pleased. And he mentioned he wanted to be the guy. That's why he's come to Indiana. He felt like he deserved a bigger role than he had in Milwaukee. They re-signed Bledsoe and, wanted George Hill over Brogdon. So, he's reaped the benefits with the Pacers and, the fans couldn't be more impressed.
And, I mean, leading into the playoffs and leading into Victor Oladipo's return, it's going to be really important to have multiple weapons at the end of the game. I mean, I think without a secondary ball handler who can, get you a clutch basket at the end of the game, you become a little bit predictable, and ultimately teams will throw out, 1, 2, 3 players at Victor Oladipo when he's trying to make a bucket with a minute left. But now that they know that they have to be wary of Brogdon, now that they know that, TJ Warren can get buckets when he wants to, now that they know that Domas is going to clean up the offensive boards and he could get a bucket inside as well. Miles will be in the corner. Like, it's just a different offensive look, and it's far that you've got far more. I've certainly got far more confidence in this group's ability to be able to score down the stretch, particularly at full strength. Alex, how do you feel about our ability to win close games now?
Yeah, I think Fox Sports Indiana threw up a graphic I think it was in that Timberwolves game where Brogdon ranks like third in the league for the most clutch points. You know, he's up there with guys like Jokic, guys like Kyrie Irving. These are some of the best closers in the world. So to be in that kind of category is just absolutely elite. And to have two guys, and as you mentioned, there's more than two guys. Even Jeremy Lamb, you know, if he's having a good night off the bench, you can chuck him in and he can get a bucket. So I think more than ever with this Pacers team, they have so many guys that they can go to close games, and that's going to be huge, especially come playoff time. It's something that I think last year's team struggled with a little bit. When Depot was out, we just didn't have anyone we could go to. I think Bojan was more of a spot-up guy. He struggled off the dribble. We saw that in the Celtics series, and it really hurt us. So to have all these closers now this year is just going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, I think the rotation is going to have to get settled again once Vic goes out, and I've thought long and hard about this. We've discussed TJ McConnell versus Aaron Holiday a lot this season, and I think at this stage, TJ McConnell 100% has the edge in getting minutes in the rotation once Victor Oladipo returns. I think he gives you more across the board. You guys will both know that I've been a big Aaron Holiday fan and continue to be. I think that he's got a place in the rotation on an NBA team. But on this team, as the bench will mature, obviously with Oladipo coming back, you've got Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, Doug McDermott, and TJ McConnell. And Nate likes to play 9 guys. He's not going to go to 10. He's not going to go to 11. And guys like Aaron Holiday and Goga will miss out, and they'll get spot minutes. And Edmund Sumner is another one that will miss out. He'll get spot minutes when someone's in foul trouble, when we have an injury. But at this stage, I would say that it's really clear that Nate trusts Holiday, McDermott, and McConnell to be the 3 key bench guys, along with Jeremy Lamb, who's kind of feast or famine a little bit at the moment. We saw a really good outing against the Wolves and a really poor outing against Denver. But then again, that's kind of what you get from your 6-man. That's why he's a 6-man and why he's not a starter. So, Justin, do you think that's the sort of rotation that Nate will use once Vic comes back, that TJ McConnell will play over Aaron Holiday, and you'll have Holiday, Badate, and the other bench guys sort of not seeing any minutes?
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly there, Adam. Touchwood, if everyone's healthy, that's exactly what will happen. I think TJ McConnell's earned McMillan's trust, like you said, and just as a supporter, I do trust TJ probably on the court more in the fourth quarter than Aaron. Aaron's had some magnificent games as well, but McConnell got 7 assists tonight in 20 minutes. He gets others involved. He doesn't look for his shot as much as Aaron. I think actually against Denver, Nate McMillan pulled Aaron Holiday from the court. Holiday gave up an offensive rebound where he didn't box out, and he got pulled immediately. So you can tell his head's just not in the game in the last few games. I don't know, he was playing really well as a starter, but now he's dropped off again. He seems like his confidence just shot. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Aaron Holiday's year ends up. And I personally don't want to get roasted online or the Paceroos Twitter account, but I actually think it's the time to trade him. I think his value. Yeah, his value.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hot take alert! Hot take alert!
Hey, we gotta make hot takes, and this is one of mine. I think he built his value up as a starter. He said he can be a consistent 20-point, maybe 6 or 7 assist type guy. He can hit big shots. But for us, once Oladipo comes back, I don't think we need Aaron Holiday anymore. I think we've got Malcolm Brogdon, we've got TJ McConnell, and then if an injury happens, you've got Sumner coming in there. I think we can get some value for Aaron Holiday and really fill a void off the bench. But
I'll throw it back at you though. What are we getting in terms of value, and what are we upgrading? Because I mean, if we're trading Aaron Holiday away, we're doing it for one of 2 reasons. One, to get value down the line, i.e. draft compensation, which is not something the Pacers have really been keen on doing ever in their history. They like keeping the player. Or number 2, packaging Aaron Holiday with another player to get a player that's going to raise the ceiling of the team. So, in your view, if you were to trade Aaron Holiday, who would be with Aaron Holiday in that deal, and what sort of player would you be looking to get back? And this is where we get into very dangerous territory.
Yeah, it's always hard. I'm not a GM, obviously. I don't know what offers. I don't know what Aaron Holiday's trade value is. I actually have no idea, to be honest.
I think it's pretty high, actually.
Pretty high. Well, could you package him, TJ Leaf, and a pick for maybe like a Marcus Morris type player, someone you've always wanted, Alex, from the Knicks?
Don't try to throw me under the bus here, Justin. Come on now.
Well, it's always hard. Like I don't like bringing up potential trades, but I just think Aaron Holiday is probably going to get. He might be thinking now, right? Like, oh wow, TJ McConnell's gone in front of me in the depth chart. They've got their all-star Malcolm Brogdon starting as a point guard. His time might be up in Indiana soon, and I know all the fans love him. He's a fan favorite. He's clutch, and we got his brother, and I know all the magnificent things he brings to this team. But all I'm saying, if I'm Kevin Pritchard and someone's inquiring about Aaron Holiday, I am 100% listening, because I think we can improve our team without him once Oladipo comes back.
I just wonder what the move would be in terms of, for me, if you're going to trade away Aaron Holiday, you're not going to pair him up and trade away another player that's out of the rotation. You're going to trade someone in the rotation. You're going to upgrade that position and throw in Aaron Holiday. For me, it's Aaron Holiday and Jeremy Lamb for a first-class bench player, like a really incredible bench talent, or a player that fills a need and some draft compensation. So it's, I'm just going to throw this out there, and once again, dangerous territory, I know. But, is it Aaron Holiday and Jeremy Lamb for Thaddeus Young and a pick?
You know what I was going to say? Thad, because Thad, I think he's off. I think he won't be on the Bulls for more than mid-season. I think he's gone.
He's not enjoying it.
Yeah.
He's
hating.
Yeah,
that's really clear. And also, I mean, if you follow social media, you see that Pacers fans really want him back, and you see that his family are responding to those calls and saying, we do miss Indiana, and Indiana misses Thad. And if you just use your crystal ball for a second, you look at the types of players we're going to have to defend come the playoff time. Who do we want defending Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Exactly. And, we got Embiid to worry about as well, and, Siakam and everything like that. And, Pacers have done well up until this point, but playoffs are a different ballgame, as we all know. So, look, it's a great conversation. Look, it probably won't happen. This is not the Paceroos saying Aaron Holiday's on the block, he's about to get traded. No, it's just, in my mind, Aaron Holiday might want a new opportunity, maybe at the end of the year. He probably feels as at least he's a backup point guard. I don't think he would believe he's a third string player, which right now he is for the Pacers. So that's more along the lines I was getting at. And I think we can probably improve if we were to, bring in a good asset with trading him away. But look, very interesting.
I don't necessarily disagree with that take, but I think it's very difficult to find a deal. I think if you've ever just sat in the trade machine for half an hour and had a bit of a look around the league at the different deals, the negative to the Pacers having so many contracts that are very reasonable is that we don't have many deals that we have the ability to be able to make just due to the sheer number of bad deals that are out there in the league, or deals that are, for amounts for certain players where you would look at that contract and think, we're paying potentially superior players less money than other players around the league are getting. So it's very difficult to say, get a player at Jeremy Lamb's level for $11 million a year. It's very difficult to get a player at Doug McDermott's shooting for $7 million a year.
Yeah.
And therefore, trade partners become more difficult for the Pacers. So I think it's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't mind. I've sort of been singing out all year and saying we need to try and find a way to defend the athletic power forwards, scoring forwards in the league, and we don't necessarily have that now on our current team. But I think it's going to be really, really difficult because the Pacers have been so good at signing players to reasonable deals. Alex, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to throw it out there. Jeremy Lamb and Thaddeus Young, their contracts are just about the same, right? About that 10, 11 mil. What if you just gave Chicago a couple second-round picks we got from Phoenix? Or, I don't even think you have to throw in a first-round pick to get that done. I think the Bulls will be that desperate to get some sort of draft compensation in that deal. Or another name I was going to throw out there is Luke Kennard. I know the Pistons might be blowing up, so do you throw Aaron Holiday over to Detroit and get Luke? I don't know, just throwing it out there.
I love that. I would love that. Another 3-point shooter coming off the bench. I think It'd be interesting. Hopefully, maybe we get some news closer to the trade deadline if Pritchard maybe gets offered someone, or we put someone on the table, or if he just wants to stand pat and see how we go with Oladipo. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, we know Pacers rarely make a mid-season trade, very rarely, or a big one. So, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it also, I mean, the chemistry with this team is clearly just as good as it has been in other years, and we've seen historically with Indiana making a mid-season trade hasn't been a positive for the roster, like that Granger-Turner trade we discussed with Chris Copeland last week. Do you risk messing with the chemistry of the team? Maybe you don't, Adam, maybe also, you do. And Kevin Pritchard's best placed to make that decision.
A massive thing is which is very rare and unique, is we've got his brother. So
that is
very true.
How would Justin Holiday feel about that? That's very interesting, and that just got to my mind then how, one day one of them's going to get traded or cut, how that's going to affect the other. Very interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's we say it's a nice problem to have so many good players that could get minutes in the rotation, but it also makes it very difficult for the GM to be able to improve the roster if there's things that need to happen to improve the roster. And I still maintain I'd be happy for this team to stay where it is, to stand pat through the trade deadline. But if I was going to make a move, then I would address the defense of those athletic forwards.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, well, we know Kevin Pritchard. I think he rarely ever makes in-season trades, if ever. So, I mean, we're just spitballing here. I don't think he'll actually do anything. Maybe we pick up a piece around the buyout market. I know we talked about that a couple episodes ago with Mark Monteith, but outside of that, I just don't see anything happening, really.
No, I think it'll be nothing to see here, which is not a bad thing, because we also... I think we've built a pretty good reputation with players in the league that we look after players and we do business the right way. And that obviously is only going to be compromised to a certain extent if there's a move that Pritchard feels he has to make that really propels us up in the upper echelon of teams in the league. It'd have to be a hell of an offer to force a move at this stage of the year, I feel, because the team seems to be clicking. I mean, we've got 4 games left of this road trip. It's the longest road trip, I think, Western Conference road trip we have remaining on the schedule. We've got Utah tomorrow, followed by Phoenix, Golden State, and then Portland to round it out ahead of Victor Oladipo's return against Chicago in Indianapolis. So out of those 4 games, Utah, Phoenix, Golden State, and Portland, I'll throw out what is the most winnable of those 4 games, and what is a game you're most concerned about out of those 4 games. Justin, we'll start with you.
I'd say Golden State's the most winnable one. They did just beat Orlando, and obviously they've still got D'Angelo Russell, who can drop 30 or 40 on anyone. But yeah, I think you should be able to pencil Golden State in as a win. They've got a lot of G League players. And I've watched a lot of Golden State games this year. They are bound to give up any lead. They've been up 10 with 2 minutes left on teams, and then they just crumble. So that should be penciled in as a win. And I think the most difficult is the Utah Jazz. I think they won 9 or 10 in a row recently, and they've come in some hot form once they got Jordan Clarkson. So that trade with Dante really has worked out for them, getting another scorer off the bench. And winning in Utah is always tough. I know it's a really tough place for the Pacers to always scratch out a win. And we have beaten Utah before, so that'll be fresh on their mind. So yeah, I think Utah is going to be the tough one. I think if we can somehow beat Utah, I'm calling a 5-0 road trip. I'm calling it. Don't care. But if we were to lose against Utah, I'm calling it a 4-1 road trip, which would be very pleasing.
Yeah, I've always looked at Utah and Indiana sort of as that two Spider-Mans pointing at each other meme. Because they too, they base their game and their team around defense. They're unassuming, they're professional. They've always fielded a fairly competitive team, with a couple of exceptions where they've had high lottery picks. But, overall, I think they're very well respected around the league. And once again, one of those, we hate the term, but smaller markets. But I would agree that's probably the most difficult game on the schedule. But, Alex, I'll ask the same question to you. But Additionally, how much money should I put on the Ricky Rubio over for points against Phoenix, given all the crap you've given him this year?
I hope to God that Malcolm Brogdon snaps that man's ankles in half that game. But I think the Baines fan club is probably going to be the biggest problem there. If the Phoenix Suns win that one, I'm not going to be on Twitter for the next 2 days after that. But yeah, like Justin mentioned, I think if we can get that Utah win, honestly, I'm going to back you with that one. I reckon we can go 5-0. I think we always struggle in Portland, I should say. We haven't won there since 2007, same as Denver before today. So, 13 years seems like an absolute lifetime ago. Hopefully, if we can somehow by some miracle beat the Jazz tomorrow, I truly think we can go 5-0 heading into Oladipo's return.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I think the Utah game is going to be the most difficult. I think it's probably interesting and a really smart move to have Oladipo come back to that Chicago game. I remember our friends, the sideline guys, Jeremiah Johnson and Pat Boylan, talking about earlier in the season how the first game back after a long road trip is the one that players say is the most difficult. And you remember that we had a road trip swing in the West around maybe the Western Conference earlier in the season, and we came back and played the Clippers, I think, as the first game home, and we really struggled and we were quite lethargic against a team that didn't have Kawhi Leonard at the time. Paul George lit us up, but we then won 5 in a row after that loss. But I'd say that the injection of Oladipo into the lineup will bring about that sort of excitement and vigor that you need to see from a game, and you probably need to inject into a team that's just been on a really long road trip there where it hasn't been home for quite a while. So I think they've played this sort of thing perfectly. And if we can squeak past Utah tomorrow, which is arguably the biggest test we've had since I would say the Philadelphia game on New Year's Day or the Toronto game before that, then I'd say we're a big chance to go 5-0. But the trap game for me is Phoenix. I think Phoenix have been plucky early in the season, and they've really struggled since their hot start. But that third game in 4 nights is always the other one that players say is a really difficult one to play. So trap game against Phoenix for me, but I think we can still get it done. We're professional. I'd say take the under in the first half against Phoenix, but I'd say we're probably going to come out in the second half and impress as we do against many different teams. Justin, moving forward, we've obviously played half of the season. The Pacers have now played 43 games. They're 28-15. So we're just over halfway through the season. It's hard to believe that the season's halfway over already. What team or what player across the league has impressed you the most so far halfway through the season? And what player or team have you been the most disappointed by looking at halfway through the NBA season?
Yeah, you're right, Adam. It's gone extremely quick. I remember our first recording of the actual season when we were 0-3. That feels like, man, a few weeks ago when we lost to Detroit. But yeah, over halfway through the season, and it's been a very exciting season in the NBA. Like, people have stepped up, and I've got to say the most impressive player to me would have to be Jimmy Butler.
Oh no, Justin, don't do it to me.
No.
I have to trigger.
Hey, Twitter will be after you.
I'm joking. I had to trigger everyone in the world. The most impressive player to me this season has probably been Luka Doncic. Coming from his rookie season, like he's now a sophomore, and he's putting up MVP numbers. I didn't really believe the hype when he was drafted. I thought the Trae Young deal was probably good for Atlanta, but no, he's a freak. I watched quite a bit of him, and he's out of this world. Like, the shots he makes, you literally cannot defend him at all. Team wise, I'd say I'm probably I actually hate to say it, but I'm not even joking. The Miami Heat, I did not have them coming second at this point of the season. They're 29-13, 18-1 at home. That's a magnificent effort. Like Eric Spoelstra has got to be up for nearly Coach of the Year, I think. So I think we can peg him down in the standings, though. Like Pacers are only 1.5 games behind Miami. We obviously get the biggest trade acquisition in the whole league in a week, getting Oladipo back. So we can hunt them down, I think. I reckon Pacers' goal for this second half of the year is to get a top 4 seed. I think we can surpass the Heat, Raptors, or Celtics from now. And like I've mentioned to you guys, I personally don't rate the 76ers. I think the Pacers are a better team than them.
Big call. I love it. I love it. Alex, who's impressed you the most this season?
Well, firstly, Justin, you're killing me out here with these hot takes, man. You're killing me. But I think the most impressive team and player for me has been Memphis. I think for them to be in the playoff picture right now, only a few games behind 7 seed in the West, is just absurd. And Ja Morant, he is my favorite player that's not on the Pacers in the league. He is just on the lines with Luka Doncic. Some of the stuff he does, you see those highlights where he makes those, crazy behind the back passes or doing spin moves, hitting threes in James Harden's face and talking shit to him, talking smack. But yeah, I just love Ja Morant. I love what the Grizzlies are doing. Jaren Jackson's a beast. But going on the most disappointing team, I should say, for me, that's Portland Trailblazers. Yeah. I know they have that Nurkic injury, but there is no excuse to be 8 games below 500 for them. They have just been absolutely dismal this season, so pretty disappointing from them.
There'd probably be about 12 games under 500 without Melo.
That's actually true. He's been balling out.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, Alex. And just want to give a shout out. We'll get yours in a second, Alex. But sorry, Adam. I just want to give a shout out to the Pelicans. They have been hot lately, and they could be fighting for that 8th seed with Zion coming back this week.
Still my thunder. Still my thunder.
I know what you're going to say.
I was actually going to say that Brandon Ingram's been the player that I've been most impressed with this season. I think this guy was much maligned, isn't he? Playing for the Lakers, playing in a huge market with massive expectations, number 2 pick. Clearly struggled under the weight of those expectations, struggled with some injuries and a real scare with his blood clots last year. He's got 25 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. He's shooting at a high percentage. He's dueling out there with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, probably one of my favorite non-Pacers players as well. And I love to see a guy who was maligned, who people called a little bit of a bust, prove everyone wrong. Just come out and prove everyone wrong. I'd say on the flip side, the team and players I'm probably the least impressed with in the league. I did have some expectations for the Sacramento Kings this season. I thought they were going to be a lot better than they are. De'Aaron Fox is suffered through a bit of an injury and missed a bit of time, but he hasn't necessarily been able to reach the level that I thought he could. Marvin Bagley's been injured, so they have been a little unlucky with injuries, but they just continue to be a little bit incompetent overall. I feel for Kings fans because they've had to put up with an incompetent franchise for a really long time, and bring this full circle, Justin, back to your Luka Doncic point. I was one of the people that was sort of crying out for Luka Doncic to go first in that draft because I thought he was doing things that no other prospect at that stage was doing, and I think there was an anti-European bias against the fact that he hadn't done it against Virginia Tech in January. But I think it was ridiculous at the time, and it's ridiculous now, the fact that the Kings didn't draft him second. I understand the Suns taking 8 and first, the local kid, and he's a really good prospect. Centers are highly valued, but the Kings passing on Doncic to take Bagley is something that I'll never ever understand, and has probably set their franchise back another 10 years, and they're already set back another 20.
Wasn't there a rumor that Vlade Divac just didn't get along with Doncic's dad? That's why I didn't draft him.
I don't think that's a rumor. I think that's a thing.
That's facts.
And for that alone, I don't necessarily think that person should be running an NBA franchise if that's the sort of decision that you're going to make. Because the Lakers took Lonzo Ball. We know who his dad is, and he's a bit of a controversial figure. So I don't think someone's family being a little bit difficult to deal with should be a barrier to selecting the player, because I think talent tends to win out, especially when it's talent like Luka Doncic. So, yeah, I'd say that I was expecting the Kings to actually leap up into playoff contention this year, and they've done the opposite. And well done to Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans. It's a feel-good story to see a team with their best player want out and being traded and still make the playoffs. We know what that's like. We saw it 2 years ago with the first Oladipo team, and I see the same thing with the Pelicans, and I love to see it. I hope they make the playoffs, and I hope they beat the Lakers in the first round. That would be just the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, that would be. I can't wait for the playoffs this year. I think the matchups in the East and the West are going to be fantastic. But while we're just spitballing and doing a bit of roundtable, Alex, I just want to mention about the movement you started on Twitter today with Sir Lancelot.
Oh, yes.
Lance.
And did you guys see his tweet as well?
Yeah,
saying one call away.
You cannot tell me Lance did not see your tweet.
That exactly. Yeah, I guarantee you that was after you saw mine.
Yeah. It's been a real Lance theme over the last week. Copeland, obviously, we spoke about Lance at length with him, and Alex, you've just done the jersey swap, and I think there's a place on this team for Lance Stevenson. I mean, even if it's at the end of the bench, even if it's coming in as a victory cigar at the end of games, just for the crowd. I mean, the home playoff games, him coming in at a stage in the second quarter, maybe we've got a bit of a sluggish start to the game, and Nate just says, "Come on, Lance, come in for 2 minutes, play the guitar, and hit a couple of threes." I think there's a place for an energy guy like that on the end of our bench.
Him and TJ McConnell would be the greatest dynamic duo off the bench in Pacers history. That would be absolutely insane.
Is there any more beloved Pacer in our time than Lance Stevenson? I like fans.
I got a lot of hate though. I got a lot of criticism for this jersey swap. People were actually going at me. Yeah, somebody was saying, "Oh, what the hell is this? There's no need for this." I'm like, what, bro? Calm down, man. You can't win on social media.
That's wrong. That's
the
wrong.
Most energetic pacer.
I don't know how you love him.
Yeah, he's a pacer. When he retires from basketball, he will be known as a pacer for the battles 100%. With LeBron, and every fan loved him. I remember going to the playoffs with my father, and he was watching him. He doesn't know many players, but he loved Lance Stevenson because he was punching himself in the head. He was beating his chest against LeBron, and a 50, 60-year-old man loves that. It was just fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's just a pity that Heat game I saw he got ejected, but at the same time I feel like I got the full Lance experience. It was great. I definitely did, and we all love Lance. We all want to see him back in a Pacers uniform, as we said, even if it's just to be around the team and just to add that swagger and that confidence. And I feel like we're a very professional team. We go about our business. We're quietly confident, but sometimes you just need that guy in the room just kind of revving everyone up and being like, we can beat anyone on our night, and that would be Lance Stevenson. He would be the guy in the locker room convincing everyone, including guys that are a little bit down in their confidence like Miles Turner. You can beat anyone at any time.
Adam, people forget because they make light of Lance and his antics and everything like that, but man, when we played LeBron in a playoff series, Lance showed up. He was the player who wouldn't back down from LeBron. He would not take no for an answer. Sometimes we'd have other players you could tell were a bit timid, maybe a bit afraid of LeBron. Lance would go at him, and that's why he nearly became my favorite Pacer, because he would butt heads with him. He would drive to the hoop. He'd dunk on him and clench his fists against LeBron. And, in this day and age of, you got to bow down to LeBron. He's the king, Paul George, buddy with him. Nah, we had Lance absolutely trying to step on his throat. And I love that.
Yeah, and I think all the Pacers fans in Bankers Life Fieldhouse would give just the biggest reception to this guy if he happened to come back on it just has to be a veterans minimum deal in February, to replace potentially, if God forbid we have an injury. But if the opportunity presents itself to get Lance Stevenson back on this team, I think just for the chemistry, it would be a good idea.
And don't underestimate the impact of him having conference finals experience as well. No other player on the Pacers I don't even know if there's been a player on the Pacers on this roster that's made it. Justin Holiday. But outside of him, no one's made it past the first round, I don't think. Maybe TJ McConnell as well. So I think having Lance with that playoff experience would be absolutely huge, especially for the locker room, as you said.
Yeah, I actually, it's a question I'll throw to both of you. Justin, you first. Do you think you need to have a player on your roster that's been there before to be able to get there? That's either won a championship or competed in a finals to be able to get to the finals?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think so. I think you do need some sort of championship pedigree. That's why I think when most teams are contending, you'll notice the GM will actually kind of go after a veteran who's been on a playoff team or a contending team. They might not even be a star player, just someone in the locker room who's been there. Tyson Chandler for Dallas kind of rings a bell. Once Dallas won the championship, a few teams wanted Tyson Chandler's kind of playoff experience. So I think it is very interesting. We need to get some of that experience into Oladipo, I think. Let's hope maybe it's an Eastern Conference Finals appearance for Oladipo this year, and then, we can build on that. Because, I think the likes of, Miles, Domas, and Oladipo, once they reach the Eastern Conference Finals one day, they're going to be going up against a Giannis who already has that experience. So, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive second half to the season, and certainly at the Paceroos, we plan to have a massive second half of the season as well. We've broken our duck in terms of former players, and we're hoping to continue that trend through All-Star Weekend and beyond. But for now, we will hope that we go 4-0 for the rest of this road trip, and we will speak to you either midway through it or at the end of it. But we've been the Paceroos Podcast, and thanks for listening.